Here I am, ready to talk about this book right here, which is Dark Whispers, the third book in the Unicorn Chronicles, which I finished reading a couple of weeks ago. So, okay, I have already done two videos covering the first two books, which is basically this book right here. So this book that you see here has the first two books of the Unicorn Chronicles, which are Into the Land of the Unicorns and Son of the Wanderer. I read those two books. I went over what I thought for both of them, and I also talked about a few fragments and ideas that I marked from those books that I found interesting. So I made one video to tell you what I thought about the book itself, not a review, but an actual, basically a discussion of my ideas from the book, what I thought about it, whether I liked it or not, my favorite characters, what I didn't like, basically giving you my ideas. My ideas from the book is what I did in both videos. So the first one was about the book itself, about the story, and the second video I did for each one of those books was sort of like a philosophical talk, philosophical discussion about the ideas that I got from the book. Not all of them were related to the story in the book, but I still got them from reading those books. So I share with you a philosophical talk and a talk about the book itself. So I did it, this book right here has those two books. So I did it for those two, and now we are in the third one, which is Dark Whispers. I am already reading the last one. The last one is The Last Hunt. I'm already reading this book right now. I have already read like 100 something pages. I am not disappointed, which is something great, because it's a pretty long book. So I hope it delivers at the end, because it is the end of a 4-book saga. So I know that when I reach the end of a saga and it delivers, it makes you feel like you had a great experience. On the other hand, if you get to the end of a long saga with more than 3 books and it doesn't deliver, you feel like you wasted your time. That's something that I hate, even if it's just reading one book. Imagine it for more than 3 books. Imagine reading all that and reaching the last book and seeing that it was really bad at the end. You feel like you wasted time, you feel like you wasted money on the books, you feel like you wasted everything. Like you should have been reading something else that was good, that was better. So this is the reason why I began sharing in video my reading list. My reading list is really good. I have been in different book clubs in person. In none of them I like what they were reading. Obviously I didn't tell them. I just didn't go to the book club again. But I didn't like what they were reading. It was too dramatic for my taste. I don't want to say boring, but it definitely wasn't engaging enough for me. And basically what I like is adventure with a mix of either science fiction or fantasy, one of those two, and some action, something you can learn from it, some lesson, something worthwhile, and definitely good endings. And when I say good, I don't necessarily mean happy, but I mean satisfying endings. And I am finding that in my own reading list, and I'm sharing it in sort of like a book club host, a discussion fashion. That's what I'm doing. And I began doing it with the Unicorn Chronicles, which has 4 books. So right now, I am in the third one. I already read it, so I'm just gonna tell you what I think about it. And I'm gonna make 2 videos, like I did with the others. The first video is this one right now. The first video, I'm gonna tell you what I think about Dark Whispers, which is a 3rd book. If you want to know what I thought about the others, just look at the playlist, look at the videos, and watch them, and you will see what I thought about the others and the ideas that I got for the others. So for this one, first of all, if you're older than 20, the 3rd book and the 4th book are better than the first 2. All 4 of them are good. The story is pretty good. I'm pleased with that because at the beginning I got into it without knowing what to expect, and I really wanted it to be good. And the first book, it didn't deliver until much later, almost at the end of the book. Same with the second, but I ended up enjoying it a lot because the ending for the second was really good. And in the third, which I already finished, I began to see that the story in the third is more adult-like because they have like two separate paths with different characters, and one of those paths is with adult characters, and the other part is with the protagonist, which is the girl, Kara. So my favorite characters in this book are the ones from the adult path of the story. I really enjoy that path. I'm not 30 yet, but I'm older than, I'm between 25 and 30. And Iron Hunter and Fallon for sure are my two favorite characters in this book. The fantasy stuff, the ideas in the Robbie prison, like the emerald like red prison that they went into, I found that very interesting. And I really found like I identified myself with the character Iron Hunter. It's most likely the character in the whole story that has more things in common with me, which is not surprising because it's one of the few characters in the story that is an adult male. So, I'm closer to the age of the character. But also the protagonist, Kara Hunter, is becoming a better protagonist as the story goes on. Even though she's very young, she's that type of girl, of teenager that is very mature for her age, and she can make decisions that are for her age more advanced for sure. So she's a very likable protagonist. She's a good protagonist. She's not my favorite character though. My favorite character here in this book is Iron Hunter. Excellent, not the character, but his line of the story, his storyline, I really like that. The Robbie prison and this Fallon guy that you don't know everything about this Fallon guy until the fourth book, but he's already a good character in this book, in the third one. Okay, so let me see what I wrote here for. So in general, I like the third book more than the first two. I think that any adult that reads this series is going to enjoy the third book and the fourth more than the first two. The only disadvantage is that the third book and the fourth book are way longer. So it's gonna take you much longer to be able to finish them. The first one was like 160 pages. The second one was like 300 pages. The third one, this one, is 460 pages, and the last one is 600. Huge books, but they are good. They're much better than the first two. If you're a reader that is younger than 15, you're going to enjoy the first and the second books more, I believe. I believe that will be the case. Because the third one, there's more, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's definitely more violence. There are 2 deaths in the third book. In the first and the second, I don't think that anyone died in those 2. But in this one, in the third, 2 characters died. So, there's a lot more going on. There's definitely a lot more. Okay, I'll tell you when I get there. There's a lot more suffering in this book. But it makes sense because of what is happening. And that was one of the things I didn't like. But, it was a good fit with some of the things that were happening in the story. And I can imagine many younger readers not liking some of that. What I really liked about it wasn't that there was more suffering or more drama. I don't like drama or suffering. It was the fact that the story began to feel more mature, I think. I really liked the storyline with Iron Hunter. So I began to like the whole saga much more with this book. So obviously I liked it more than the first 2. I don't recommend the third book for little children. Little children, younger than 10, can read the first one and enjoy it very much, maybe even the second one. But this one, I don't think that a 7-year-old or 8-year-old should be reading that Dark Whispers. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. It depends on you. But you know, seriously, I think Dark Whispers is more for teenagers at least. It takes on a darker tone in the story. As I told you, there are 2 deaths in this book, and in the first 2, no one died. So they are taking a more serious, a tougher perhaps tone for some parts in the story. But there are more characters, there are more things happening. There are 2 storylines going on parallel, and they tell you both of them. It's a lot more going on than in the first 2 books, and I found that better. Okay, so for our characters, I already mentioned Iron Hunter and Fallon. The third one will be the Whisperer. The Whisperer is the kind of villain that I like. It's a villain that is really smart. It's a villain that you didn't expect. It's a villain that you don't know what's coming from this guy. You have no idea. So one of the things to look forward in the story is knowing more about that villain, seeing what he's gonna do, and seeing how the hell are they going to beat this Whisper guy that they don't even know anything about. So it's this this build of unknowns around the villain make it more interesting. Okay, so most hated character in the whole story. Felicity. Felicity is the woman the Iron Hunter has to talk to in the Red Ruby prison. Felicity is such, the B word basically. It's I'm not gonna spoil it. If you read it, you will see what Felicity does to him, but it's pretty messed up. I didn't like it, but it fits there with the story, and it's something that can happen in real life. It's Felicity is the complete opposite to Kara. I really like Kara, and I really like women that are like Kara. Felicity is the complete opposite, so I don't like anyone that is like that. And it's the most hated character for me in the whole story. The least liked characters, this is not the same as most hated. The ones that I liked the least were, I'm not gonna put Felicity there because Felicity, when you hate a character too much, they did something right with that character. They did something right. That's why you hate him or her, because they're a villain, bad character, and they did something right. If you end up hating the character for real. So the ones I liked the least were the Delver King. The Delver King, maybe he could have had more development. I feel they could have done more for Delver King. And Magama. Magama is okay. She's okay, she fits with the story, but she was never a character that I liked that much. She's okay. Okay, the best of the whole story, the best parts of the whole story. For me, the best chapter of the whole book, and the book has a lot of chapters. I think it has like 60 chapters. The best one is the one that's named the Ruby Prison. The Ruby Prison, or Ruby, maybe it's Ruby. Amazing chapter. It managed to do what the first chapter of the first book didn't do for me. The first chapter of the first book was like a chase sequence, and they tried to make you feel the fear of the protagonist in the chase. I didn't feel anything. I didn't like the first chapter of the first book, and it didn't hook me. I kept on reading though, and I did like the story at the end. This chase in the Ruby, it was the Ruby Prison? No, the name of the chapter was the Ruby Portal. Yeah, the Ruby Portal. The chase in that chapter was perfect. It really hooked me. I felt the sensation of hurry in the characters, what they were feeling. It was excellent. It was one of those scenes or chapters that put you in the edge of the seat, and I love that. I love those. In movies, in books, in anime series, in shows, I love those. So that was the chapter I liked the most. the Robbie Portal. What I liked the most about the book was the storyline with Ian Hunter and Fallon and the kid, and the villain, the Whisperer. The Whisperer is a pretty good villain. I like all that. So let me show you, so you can see, you can get a good view of the book. Don't read this book until you read the first two. That's a big recommendation. Don't jump into this until you have read these two right here. I don't know if it's gonna look clear or not. Hopefully it does look clear. So first, read Into the Land of the Unicorns. Second, Son of the Wanderer. And third, Dark Whispers. Dark Whispers is pretty good. For any age, you know, if you're younger than 20, it's a good saga, it's a good story. It's like fantasy mixed with some adventure, and I find it interesting. I haven't finished yet. I'm in the fourth book. So let me see what else I wanted to tell you. A lot of things here. Okay, the worst part in the book was the ending is a cliffhanger. Sort of like in the game God of War 2, where the game is really good. This book is pretty good, but it finishes in a way that you know that's not the ending. So it's like, you know, it's a cliffhanger. If you want to know what happens, you need to go. Okay. Definitely need to get myself a camcorder, video recorder, so that I don't have to be, you know, doing this and couldn't, and then having to go in the video editing and putting the parts together. You don't have to do that. Okay. So yeah, the worst part about the book Dark Whispers is the ending, because it is a cliffhanger, a huge cliffhanger. You're gonna have to get the last hunt if you really want to finish the storyline in Dark Whispers. There's no other way than reading the last hunt, because it's a cliffhanger at the end of Dark Whispers. The book is good, the ending is good, but they leave it open, and you know that it doesn't end there, it keeps going. And indeed, in the last book, in the last hunt, they continue from there. So something else that I didn't like too much about Dark Whispers is that the unicorns take a backstage in this book. They were not, the characters are unicorns. I don't feel that they were that important in this book. The characters that were more important were the humans. You know, the people in Iron Hunter's side. Kara, obviously, she's the protagonist of the whole saga. Anna, the villain, they don't talk too much about him, but this Whisper villain does play a big role, especially towards the end. You see centaurs towards the end, and they also play a significant role. The Delvers play the major role in this story. In fact, throughout the book, there was a part where it was called A Story of Delvers, and the author is right about that. One of the goals for this book is showing you the Delver world, and you know, introducing all the characters that are Delvers, and giving you more of their story, who they are, where they came from. They answer that here, where the Delvers came from. It is great that they didn't leave Beloved as the main villain. That would have been too predictable. I really liked seeing that they made the Whisperer the big villain of the saga. I really enjoy seeing that. I look forward to seeing how they develop the Whisperer, because I read the fourth book. I'm still only like 20% in, so I still have a lot to go there. It's a pretty long book. I think my video for that one, I'm going to divide it. It's not gonna be, you know, I might do first half next month and the other month the other half, because it takes a long time to read that many pages in 1 month. I don't have that much time, but but I will still read it, and I do want to discuss it, so I will divide it in 2 parts then. And I think that's it for something else I can tell you. Well, I'm gonna tell you 2 things that I noticed from this book, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I could be right. I feel like there's something in this book that was inspired by elements in other stories. I'm almost certain of it. I don't know, but we'll see. There's like a big 3 that they call the Axis Mundi in the Gloucester world. And I think that was, if it wasn't inspired by that, it's a very similar idea. Inspired by the 3 of Mana from the Secret of Mana games. It could be. It could be. The Secret of Mana games have also that idea of a very important 3 for the whole world. That idea is here in Dark Whispers, and it continues in the Last Hunt. So that when I saw that, the first thing that came to my mind was, oh, Secret of Mana, the Mana 3, the Mana Goddess. Also, this character that they call Rocky. The character Rocky the Delver did something extremely similar to Dobby from Harry Potter. Like, I think at some point in the story he bangs his head against a wall or something like that. Dobby from Harry Potter does that as well. So the first thing that I thought when I saw that, when I read that, is, oh, someone here either got this idea from the other or was inspired by the other. I don't know if it was J.K. Rowling from Bruce Coville or Bruce Coville from J.K. Rowling, one of the 2, for sure, got the idea from the other or was inspired by the character from the other author. Yeah, because I don't think that was a coincidence. They are different stories, they were published at different times, and that character did the same thing. I think that wasn't a coincidence. I didn't enjoy that much the scenes of the book, and there are many scenes there. There are several chapters there in the world of the Delvers, especially when they are escaping with the chase with the big woman. What's the name? Squarch. I mean, it was okay, it wasn't written badly, it wasn't a bad scene or a bad chunk of the book, because that was several chapters, but I didn't really feel hooked with that part that much, didn't like it that much. Okay, so far, I didn't love everything about the book, there were things that I didn't like that much. But in general, if we put everything together, I like the first book, Into the Land of the Unicorns. I think it was very good. I think so far it is the best one out of the first 3 for children, for young teenagers. It's also the shortest one, 160 pages only. The others are much longer. But for me, the one that I have enjoyed the most so far is Dark Whispers, because of the separate story with Iron Hunter, which I think is gonna be my favorite character from the whole saga so far. So from the first book, it was Lightfoot. From the second book, it was I think it was Kara. Perhaps towards the end, only towards the end, the Wanderer, because of the plot twist with her. Also, I really like the character Finder in the second book. The dragon was also, the second book had pretty good characters. The dragon was pretty good. The dragons in the second book is my favorite dragon in the series so far. I like that one, Evelyn, more than the one in the fourth book, in The Last Hunt. But I haven't finished the fourth book, so we'll see. Maybe it gets better. And then comes this book with a lot of new characters, a lot of new things for the story. much more to read. It's 400 and something pages, so it's much longer. And I think I enjoyed it more. But I didn't like the fact that it has a cliffhanger. So I'm just hoping that in the fourth book, which I'm reading right now, it's gonna get better than that. So they're gonna conclude it, hopefully. And hopefully they will do it in a good way, a way that makes sense, in a way that I enjoy, that I like, I hope. I hope it has a good ending. And let's pray for that. Because imagine reading all this. Yeah, it's a lot. Imagine reading all this, you see, 3 books, to get a bad ending here at the end. I hope not. I think it won't be that way, because so far the story has been good. So I don't think the author is gonna screw it up in the last book. I don't think he will. But we'll see in in my next video about this saga, which will be for the last book, so it might be the last one. It might be the last one. So this is the video about the book, and what I liked about it, and what I disliked about it. Like I told you, the Robbie Prison stuff and the side story, not side story, but the storyline with Iron Hunter, that was what I enjoyed the most. I really felt like I could identify myself with that guy and with what was happening. I'm not that old, but I am not younger than 20, so I think I found many similarities between me and Iron Hunter, so I enjoyed that part much more. So yeah, I think that's it. But I'm gonna make another video right now, and the other video is gonna be for what? For a philosophical talk, which takes ideas from this book. I have 20 ideas from this book, which I found here, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about them. So let's do that right now, right after this video.